Suddenly, as if the wolf had been given a cue, as if he knew James would fall all along, he sprang high into the air at him. "No!" screamed James, closing his eyes and lifting his hands to shield himself from his inevitable doom. There was a flash of red light, the wolf let out a loud whimper, and James sprang up. "Ah!" he screamed in terror, rising to a dark and quiet room. He was covered in sweat and panting heavily. I'm all right," he repeated to himself under his breath as he examined himself. It was just a dream, just a dream. No, not a dream. A horrible nightmare is what that was. He quickly pulled off the covers, now feeling very hot, and lay there on his back looking up at the ceiling. He had no idea whether he had been sleeping for 5 minutes or 5 hours. It was still very dark outside. He rose from his bed, walked to the nearest window, and looked out upon the street below. It was quiet and deserted. He noticed a few homes along his street still had light emerging from their windows. Must not be too late, he thought to himself, now looking back down at the street below. Then he saw it, out of the corner of his eye. He saw the same black shadow he had seen in his dream moments ago. Gripping the windowsill tight, he turned to peer into its glowing yellow eyes as it stepped out into the moonlight. It was just a large black cat. Relief fell over James again. He was just being stupid, he thought to himself. I'm safe. He reminded himself, I'm home, I'm in my room, and there's not a chance that that wolf is going to get me in here. He watched as the cat bent its head low to smell something on the ground, crouched its hind legs, and pounced on what James could only assume was a small, helpless mouse or bug. It must have slipped through his paws, because moments later the cat darted down a nearby alley giving chase. Poor mouse, James thought, feeling a bit more sympathetic with the small, helpless creature. He then slid the window open, took in a deep breath of fresh night air, turned and went and laid back down on his bed. It was just a dream, he thought to himself as he closed his eyes, preparing himself to go back to sleep. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. James opened his eyes. There was a faint rapping emerging from the floor below. Tap, tap, tap. Here it was again. What could it be? Apparently he wasn't the only one who heard it, because moments later there was a soft click of a doorknob and some muffled footsteps outside his door. He sat and listened as the footsteps faded. Tap, tap, tap. He heard the noise again. There was another click. This time it came from his window. James turned his attention there. Holston. James heard his mother's voice faintly. What on earth? This late. He could hear her speaking, but not everything was clear. I had to come see you, said another voice, this time from a man. Here I brought you some flu. Once again he couldn't make out what the man said. Oh, they're lovely, said his mother. But you shouldn't have. Can I come in? Asked the man's voice. Well, I think not. Oh, all right, said the man's voice, sounding disappointed. And anyway, what would think if she talking to me this late at night? Said his mother, sounding muffled. She wouldn't think anything. She's at home asleep. I think that's where you should be too. You can't keep doing this, she said, now sounding stern. I love the flu. Really, I do, but I can't. Please, just take them. I want you to have them, said the man. You should be giving these to your, replied his mother, some of her words lost to the night. She means nothing to me, not anymore. You're the only person, said the man, sounding distraught. However, James was having difficulty catching every word that was said. Don't say stupid things, you know it could never, replied his mother in a worried tone. We can make it work, just me and you will move together, alone. You're much too beautiful to be living here, alone in this of a town. We can, about this place, said the man, speaking quickly now, as if in a hurry to get his thoughts out. And what about and my boys? What about them? You want me just to forget about them too, interjected his mother. No, I mean we, said the man, sounding defensively. You're only thinking about yourself. You're obsessed, and you're living in a fantasy. Man, you can't just forget about everything and run off just because Me. No, it's not like that. Not at all. You don't understand. I'm not obsessed. I love you. I can't stop thinking about you. It doesn't mean anything to me anymore. You're the only person I could ever happy with. Please just, said the man desperately. No, and keep your voice down. You'll wake the children. I told you, Holston, you have to stop doing this. You're a fool, said his mother, finishing sternly. "Holston!" sounded a third voice. "Holston, what are you doing? Who are you talking to?" "No one, dear, just the neighbour," he said unconvincingly. "Oh, just the neighbour, in the middle of the night, just the neighbour," she said now, sounding enraged. "Do you think I'm an idiot? What, do you think you can just sneak out of bed in the middle of the night and go next door for what? Get back in the house. Smack, get, and if I ever see you out here again, I'll... And what's that you're holding? He never gives me... You witch! Slap! You stay away from him. You hear me? Just because you don't have a husband doesn't mean you can steal someone else's. I'm not... Just shut up. Don't say anything." "But I wasn't. I don't care what you were or weren't. You're just a dirty good-for-nothing. Just stay away from him. You hear me? Slam!" James heard the neighbour's door slam shut so hard it made the window pane vibrate a little. "But I wasn't," his mother whispered, and a few moments later he heard the front door shut. He then heard her slowly walking back up the steps and thought he heard a sob as she walked past his door. Then the door to her bedroom shut and the house was silent once more. The next morning, James arose exhausted. He barely slept a wink the night before. Warm sunlight bathed the room in an orange-pink glow, and even though he kept his eyes closed tightly, the bright light still made it impossible to fall back asleep. Instead, he lay there in his bed, thinking about the events from the previous night, not entirely sure what to make of the conversation he had overheard, and wondering whether or not it would be a wise idea to bring the subject up again, since obviously it upset his mother. Deciding it was best just to pretend he had never heard it in the first place, he opened his eyes to see his brother still completely asleep, and taking full advantage of the situation, he grasped his pillow firmly and flung it as hard as he could towards his brother's head. It connected with a thud, and his brother sprang right up in his bed, fully alert. James couldn't help but to laugh at his brother's reaction as he looked all around for whatever was attacking him, finally spotting James laughing. "Oi, what was that for then?" Marcus asked grumpily, rubbing his eyes. "Oh, just a late retaliation." "Right, I should have guessed that bit," he said through a yawn. "So why is the window open?" Marcus asked, spotting the curtains waving in the cool morning breeze. "I was a bit warm in here last night, that's all," James said quickly, hoping his brother wouldn't second-guess him and discover the true reason it lay open. "Oh," he said sleepily. "Is Mum making breakfast yet?" "I'm not sure, I can't smell anything," said James. The boys were used to awaking to the aroma of sizzling bacon or eggs coming from below. "Well, guess we should go down and take a look," said Marcus as he planted both feet on the ground and got out of bed. James slowly followed suit and soon both boys were fully dressed and heading down the stairs. Looks like she's not awake yet. That's strange. I wonder why," he said, now looking at James. "No idea," James said, trying to look confused. However, the boys didn't have to wait long. A few moments later, they heard a door swing open and footsteps emerge from the staircase. The boys turned to see their mother still in her nightgown emerge from around the corner. "Morning, boys," she said sleepily. "Morning, Mum," the boys answered back in chorus. She looked exhausted. She obviously slept much worse than James had, and her eyes were receded and red as if she had been crying for quite a while. "What would you boys like this morning?" she asked kindly. "Griddle cakes and bacon," shouted Marcus before James could even open his mouth. As James didn't have any problem with Marcus's selection, he nodded in agreement. "That sounds perfect," said their mother. She quickly began cooking, and soon the aroma of ham and pancakes filled the kitchen air. After a few moments, there was a rattle at the front door. "Grandpa!" yelled the two brothers as they quickly rose from the table and ran to greet their grandfather, who was now stepping through the doorway. "Carefully now. Ow! Gently, gently. These old bones aren't as young as they used to be," exclaimed Matthias, trying to juggle two rather large parcels and two grandchildren who now attached themselves to either side of him. James, shortly after detaching himself from his favourite person in the world, noticed the two large packages in his grandfather's hands. "Grandfather," said James, sounding excited, "did you bring us something?" His grandfather was now placing the two packages on the table and slowly began easing himself into a nearby chair. "Why, yes, indeed I did bring you a little something. he said. After making himself comfortable and noticing the eager stares on his grandchildren's faces, he started slowly unwrapping the nearest package. This, my boys, is a new item I'm considering for the shop. The Book of Sampson, The Order of the Light, written by D.F. Rivera, read by ChatGPT.